Hello everyone, how's it going? So it's been about a month since Sony announced that they are ceasing physical production of all games starting January 2028, and this is a horrible anti-consumer move. I've already vented on this issue. I've supported the community notes where every single tweet that Sony is making is completely community noted about this monopoly and digital only future, where they've exercised their right to essentially take back whatever you've purchased. They've done this with movies, they'll do this with games, guarantee it, and they've also shown that they charge people to even access stores such as with Crunchyroll. So I 100% think down the line they're going to charge you to even access the PlayStation store. You can buy a console and they'll still say you can't access the digital store. You're going to have to pay into it using PlayStation Plus, which means they can charge whatever they want. If they want to charge $400, they can, and that doesn't guarantee that you will even have access to the game. They could have different tiers. They could require you to pay a certain amount of money in order to access this game. I know this sounds very dystopian, but considering they are even exercising this type of anti-consumer practices, you should assume the worst when it comes to these companies. If they wanted to, they would literally charge you a penny or even $1 every time you press a button, which, by the way, they have a patent for a literal digital, like a tablet-like controller that literally is just a phone on a control pad, like what Razer does or all those companies with those types of controllers. It's a really stupid idea. I'm just like, why the hell would you want that? Even Steam has physical buttons on their controller. Either way, it's just been overall devastating, and I know a lot of people would say, well, a lot of companies like Capcom, for example, has had a vast amount of sales when it came to digital. Well, that's because a lot of people buy Capcom games, particularly on PC, and PC is largely a digital-only economy. Yes, you have other options like GOG, where you can actually download a DMR-free version of, say, Breath of Fire 4, put it on a disc, and play it wherever you want. But this doesn't mean that physical copies were completely obsolete. For example, Resident Evil Requiem physical editions were sold out everywhere. So was Pragmata. It was sold out everywhere, physical editions, because guess what? Anyone with common sense knows that if you ship 100,000 units of a game like Pragmata and it all gets sold out, you sold 100,000 units. You can't sell any more than that until you get more stock. However, you can buy 100,000 digital units of Pragmata, which, yeah, the game is pretty fantastic, but you can keep buying as many copies as you want. So the fact these were all sold out just shows physical is still very much alive, and people will buy physical versions of games that they really enjoy. So this idea that physical is completely dead, yes, digital makes a large portion of your sales, but people will go out of their way to buy physical copies of games they really love. For example, Expedition 33, despite the game getting a physical edition months later, it was practically sold out. You couldn't get it anywhere, and that was because it was such a fantastic game. People wanted it in their library. It's just like this, the amount of hoops you have to go through in order to convey proper evidence, whereas people use trivial objections in order to convey their point, or misdirections, like saying, hey, digital sales did account for all of these. Like, yeah, because they have literally infinite digital amount of keys, but physical editions still sold very well. There are a lot of people who buy physical editions solely for the fact that they don't have stable internet connections, or they just don't have a really good internet connection, so they buy a physical edition so they don't have to worry about that. There are also a lot of safety concerns when it comes to physical versus digital. Physical, as long as you take care of the product. I have literal movies, VHS tapes even, that have survived 10-20 years because I take care of my stuff. But when it comes to digital, yes, it's a lot easier to access. You can download it anywhere, but here's the biggest issue when it comes to digital. If your account gets hacked, or someone accuses you of, say, cheating, and you end up getting your account banned, you're basically screwed. Unless it's Steam or GOG, Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony aren't going to help you. Like, we've seen the horror stories. Sony has a notorious history of being hacked. Microsoft recently had a lawsuit in Brazilian court where they were forced to pay back the individual, either give back his account or give him back the equated money that he spent on that Microsoft account. So yeah, if you get banned, say you're playing Call of Duty, which has a large amount of cheaters that play that game, and you go into a hack lobby by accident, you just click matchmaking, you go into a lobby, this turns out to be a glitched lobby, what do you think is going to happen? You get banned. You lose your account, thousands of dollars of games if you've had your account as long as I have, and you're screwed. So yeah, this idea that digital only is going to save you, no, this is their way of saying, hey, if their account, in fact, it incentivizes them to get your account hacked, because if your account gets hacked, guess who has to rebuy everything? Yeah. Sony says this continuation of PlayStation just won't have any negative impact on its business now or in the future. Now that's possibly one of the dumbest things I can possibly imagine. It reminds me a lot of Metroid. Like, Metroid is one of Nintendo's least selling properties. It is what it is, but it still does rather well. It still makes a profit, but it's better to have something within that sector rather than having nothing. It's like with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Guaranteed, I would say 50% of their sales are likely soda. But it doesn't mean they don't diversify with juices and waters, because they know it's better to have something in that market than have nothing at all. Same thing with Nintendo when it comes to Metroid. It may not be a flagship franchise like Legend of Zelda or Super Mario, but it still does well on its own. Same thing for Star Fox. Apparently it's doing quite well. So this idea, the way I kind of see this by this headline is that they are aware of it and the backlash that comes with it, but they're trying to appease investors, because these public statements, they don't go over well, especially when you've seen every single community note being people like canceling their PlayStation Plus account, refusing to update their PlayStation console, buying copies of the games off the third-party market, which they're trying to kill now, or just deciding, you know what, we're just going to switch over to your competitor. That's one of those scariest things you can do to this company. That's why they invent these exclusive stores. It's because they want to not pay that 30% cut they get from other companies. Like, if you really want to hurt them, buy their games if you can on Xbox, or better yet, Steam. If you buy it on Steam, it really hurts them, because they do not want that. In fact, to prove that, they were so butthurt that a lot of people were playing Helldivers 2 on Steam that they literally created a mandate where you had to create a PlayStation account in order to play the game. They reversed that decision, but you still have to do that for future games. But regardless, yeah, they don't want to do that. So literally say, I am going to buy your game, and say publicly, tweet at their account and say, I am going to buy like Marathon on Valve's Steam platform. And you have no idea how much they hate that. Like, they do not want their investors to see that. This is literally just like appeasing investors who likely have seen this controversy and being like, is this going to affect our bottom line? So Sony controversial decision to discontinue PlayStation Disc is not having any impact on its business now, and it doesn't seem any negative impact in the future either. Speaking during an investor focus Q&A, see what I mean? Like, they're trying to appease their investors, because no doubt these people have seen the backlash, they've seen the tweets, they've seen even the people who are like marketing on PlayStation. Remember, you have to pay in order to market your ad on PlayStation's Twitter account. It's thousands of dollars, but you have to pay for that because it's a huge account. And the fact you're getting all that backlash, all those community notes, it does affect your bottom line, because eventually those people who pay for that marketing, they're going to be like, this isn't worth it, because literally no one cares about us marketing Assassin's Creed Black Flag. They're going to put the community note, and usually when a normie gamer who sees that, he's going to be like, wait, what's happening? Like, if they could just keep telling people to the point that even the most casual milquetoast gamer who just buys one game a year sees that, they're likely going to be like, I'm not buying a PlayStation anymore. Because the second one of those customers leaves, they're never coming back. Like, I can tell you that for a fact. Like, I have a lot of friends who are like just buy like 1 or 2 games a year. They literally will say, I'm never buying anything from that company ever again. They did that with Xbox, with the original Xbox One. And I told a few of my friends about the PlayStation future, and they said they're never buying a PlayStation product again. They literally said, we're going to PC fully. So yeah. Following his quarter financial results, Sony CFO Ling Tao answered multiple questions about the company's decision to kill Disc, which has sparked backlash online. Tao was asked if Sony saw any impact now or in the future, which will see PlayStation Disc production come to an end in 2028. We are not seeing any impact in our business as of now. They're saying that because it's the current fiscal report. That's why they did this so like within this period. Guaranteed they're seeing it now, because they wouldn't say something like this and address it like this if it wasn't true. Going forward about the content sales, large part is already digitalized. Therefore, as a result of the discontinuation of a disc, we don't see there will be any negative impact on our business. Yeah, because you saw how good it went for Xbox. Like, it went wonderful for Xbox. In fact, it went so well for Xbox that people still quote Dan Motrick's statement about sticking with Xbox 360. People still go back to that video and still comment on it. It did so well for them. So Maybe they see something I don't. Yes, a large portion of your sales are digital, but how many people who are normal customers are going to look at a game console and say, where's the disk drive? They're going to be like, where is it? And then they're going to say, oh, it's digital all. You really think they're going to do that? Where they're going to say, I have to either put my credit card into the console, or I'm going to have to buy prepaid PSN cards? I don't think that's going to go well for a lot of these audiences. They're going to be like, no, I'll just go with the console with the disk drive. So if Project Helix ends up with a disk drive, chances are they'll go to that. I'm just saying, like, Sony has a notorious history of being hacked, and yeah. However, as I've already said, the users and players have attachment, and we think about how to respond to these feedbacks. Earlier Q&A, Tao said Sony wouldn't change its mind while acknowledging strong views from the video game community. The online backlash has been seen by gamers continue to call Sony the U-turn on its decision, signing petitions and forming over PlayStation social media posts, so that's basically what they're saying. But yeah, look, I don't know what the future holds. There's actually a proposed blackout about not playing PlayStation, which I don't think is going to go anywhere. There isn't going to be enough people who are going to engage with that or even aware that it's going on. And most importantly, it's that because game consoles are so expensive, usually people buy one console and that's their primary console for their entire household. Whether it's a Switch, an Xbox, a PlayStation, or even a PC. And I don't think that's going to do a lot of stuff. I think the biggest thing that's going to cost them their bottom line, if enough people just genuinely stop playing. Like, I know I just said and contradicted that, but I mean, like, over time. Once this news starts to spread in the way that normal people who don't keep up with the game and news start to become more and more aware of this and just decide, why am I invested into this system if they're just going to take away something that I own? What's going to happen with my physical disc? Are they going to send a kill code and just kill my disc? What happens when the PlayStation Network gets hacked again? Am I going to lose everything? Recently, Xbox and PlayStation just had a full network blackout, which I think was the best thing you could possibly happen because everyone who defended its decision just felt what it was like. In fact, there are reports that they're actually sending bots to try and counteract this entire backlash, which honestly is not surprising. Like, if individual people do that for their just like normal Twitter account in order to boost the Twitter Blue monetization, you can guarantee big multi-billion-dollar companies are doing that. Like, they buy a bunch of Twitter accounts, they buy a bunch of verified tags, which, by the way, if you see a verified tag with the blue one, I don't believe that account. Like, unless I know that person is real, I automatically assume they're fake. Like, you should do the same. Like, those Twitter Blue accounts, they're either rage baiting, drop shipping, or they're fake accounts made by companies in order to push a message or even a political message. So I wouldn't listen to any of those unless you know the person is absolutely real. But yeah, I would believe that. I believe Captain Marvel went through a similar situation where Disney was under a lawsuit where they were buying tickets for their movies. And look, it is illegal, but I know I'm going on a tangent, but you should be aware of this. It reminds me of Fallout New Vegas, where Mr. House said that it was cheaper for him to pay the penalty for not paying taxes than if he actually paid taxes. You should always look at companies like that. Would it be cheaper for them to pay the fine if they get found out by the FTC, or would it be more profitable and in their best interest to do this anyway? Always ask yourself those questions. So in this case, my recommendation is just not to play your PlayStation. Like, if you can, just take it offline. Like, that's actually the best option. Just take it fully offline, stop playing online, and just play single player games. I know that's a tall ask to ask for. I've broken that commitment a few times, but I'm starting to just decide maybe that's the best route to go because it's for the best interests of everyone, even if I'm among the minority in this situation, because there aren't enough of us to cause a massive impact. But if we can convince enough people, you get enough people around, it will do something to this. But tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions. What do you think about the future of this? Do you think we can actually make an impact? Love to hear everyone's opinions, but that's it for me. I really hate this and I really hope it gets reversed, but we have to wait and see. That's it for me. Bye.